Okay, hello. I'm trying something new out in my quest to figure out a good way to record myself doing crafts and still be in the moment at the same time. So I've recorded a bunch. I've already finished the craft, and I'm recording this now, which is different than what I've done before. But I've just filmed a bunch of time lapses, and I'll just be talking over those for the craft today. So hopefully that's fun to watch still, even though it's not the typical way that I've sort of been making these videos. So today I'm going to be making a pair, I don't know if you'd call it a pair, squirrel ears for my Squirrel Girl cosplay that I've been working on. If you don't know, Squirrel Girl is a Marvel Comics character. She's recently become popular because of Marvel Rivals. I read her comics when I was a kid and stuff, so I've kind of been aware of her, and with her like popularity, I kind of recently remembered her, and I was like, oh, that would be a really cool cosplay to do. One funny thing about Squirrel Girl that I really like to tell people about, one fun fact, is that canonically she has a squirrel tail. Like, she actually has a squirrel tail, like it comes out of her body, like it's part of her body. And so in order to, in her like secret identity form, when she's like in the regular world, being herself, she takes her squirrel tail and she puts it into her pants, and it makes it look like she has a huge butt, and it's just canonical that that's what she does, and everyone thinks that she just has a big butt and she doesn't have a squirrel tail hiding in her pants. I got a lot of fur from a friend for free. He was just like getting rid of it, and it was the perfect color, and so I was like, this is a great time to do this cosplay. So I've already completed the tail, and I'm going to show you that because I think it's super cool. So this is the squirrel tail. It kind of goes on your back like a backpack. It's got these little clear straps that you probably can't see, and then there's a little belt loop closure here. If I had a belt on, I'd put that on, but I don't. That's the squirrel tail, and so I'm going to be using, in this video, you'll see me using the same sort of just like brown fabric to make the ears. So I hope you enjoy watching me crafting some squirrel ears. So the first thing that I wanted to do was to create a core for the ears to give them some shape. And I chose tinfoil for this because I've had a lot of luck using tinfoil before for projects like this, where I need sort of a moldable, bendable thing to have on the inside of a project, for lack of better words. The piece of paper there I'm using is an ear pattern that I use for stuffed animals, and I just sort of patterned it off of that. So now I'm using some like paper packing tape to cover the entire tinfoil core that I've just made. I chose these materials also because I thought that they would be easy to pass a needle through them. I wasn't sure at this point if I was going to need to sew the ears themselves at all, and it turns out I did need to, so this ended up being a pretty good choice. So I'm just trying to go in, making it as smooth as possible and as neat as possible with the tape. So apologies for the blurry camera here, but I got my fur out and I'm taking my pattern piece that I mentioned before and the ears that I made, trying to figure out how I'm going to cut out the fur. I didn't have a whole lot at this point after I made the tail, so I was trying to be really careful about it. And one thing that I was also really thinking about was fur direction. With fur that is as nice as this fur and as long as this fur, it actually really matters the way that you cut out the pattern. And so I had to do a lot of figuring stuff out to get this right. What I'm doing right now probably looks a little bit strange, taping over the fabric after I've drawn something out, but this is actually a tip that I learned from a friend that you can do if you kind of mess up when you originally trace out a pattern. It's easier than trying to erase marks off of the back of a fabric. So here I've cut out my pattern. I'm just sewing right sides together. So I'll just let the time lapse kind of do its thing. So I have a bit of a secret to share with you. I didn't end up using the tinfoil ear core that I made initially. I ended up making a new one that was less bulky and would fit better inside of the pattern. I think that the thing I did initially would have been good, could have been good. I wasn't willing to recut out fabric, so I made a new core using pretty much exactly the same method, just way less bulky. And you can see it sitting on the table right there. I'll put a little circle around it so you can see. But it's essentially exactly the same method as I used before. Another really important thing when working on this project and working with this fur in particular is brushing out the fur periodically as you're working on it. It kind of helps to hide seams better and make sure the fur is not getting stuck, and also making sure that the fur doesn't get tangled. So now I'm doing what I think is probably the most tedious and difficult part of this project, which was trimming down the fur. I ended up not filming a lot of this, just simply because it was taking me so much time. Basically what I'm doing, my method, is to brush the fur the sort of opposite direction and then do really, really light cuts with the scissors that I use to cut my bangs, all over the top of it. So just brush the fur down, snip a little bit, brush the fur down, snip a little bit. And then I'm making sure that I'm sort of making the middles of the ears short, but leaving the ends really long so it can kind of give a spiky look like squirrel ears actually have. Yeah, so it's been about a week since the last clip that I filmed that you probably just saw. I finished trimming up the ears. You can see that it's really short right in the middle and on the back, and then the top is very spiky. The way that I made it spiky is I actually used some hairspray, just this whatever off-brand all-weather Aquanet stuff, and I sprayed it on the ends and I just kind of spiked them up like you would with, like, you know, not fur, regular hair. And then the other thing that I did is I folded the ears in half like this, and I put a little stitch all the way through the inside. The stuff that's inside there that's giving it its shape is just, you know, tinfoil, so I was able to pierce through it with a needle and do a little stitch on both like this, and it gives it that more ear shape, animal ear shape. And then I was looking at these and I was like, this kind of looks like a dog ear, or maybe like a fox or something like that. which is not what we're going for. I'm going for a squirrel ear. But I realized that squirrel ears really look like squirrel ears if they're turned to the side, like this, rather than being face on like this. So that's how I'm going to put them on the headband, is I'm going to have them facing the sides a little bit to give it more of that squirrel appearance. What I'm doing here I think is pretty self-explanatory, but I'm just cutting out some scrap fabric that I have from a previous project to cover up kind of a cheap headband that I just had laying around, and I'm hot gluing that fabric onto the headband to make sure it's all brown like the ears are. I'm gonna have to ask you to overlook the boxes in the t-shirt and the unwashed hair, but here is the headband with the fabric all glued onto it. I think it looks pretty good. Now I'm sort of contemplating how these ears are gonna go. I'm gonna attempt to hot glue them on, kind of to the side like this. I think actually a little bit more up on the head I think will be good. I'm gonna try and hot glue them. If it doesn't work, I might have to get some sewing out. I really hope I don't have to. Hopefully hot glue is enough, but sometimes it's not and things will just snap off, so we'll see. So I've put a couple pins in them after I hot glued them to the headband to kind of fold them almost one more time to sort of, when I folded them, it almost turns the ear a little bit to the side, which is what I was talking about wanting it to look like. So I think that I did a really good job of damaging some of my pins when I put the pins in, but I think I'm gonna replace them with an actual stitch and make this the final shape, and then I think I'm gonna add a little bit more hot glue to the top to make it a little bit more secure, but then honestly at that point I think I'm kind of done. I could, if I wanted to be a really lazy crafter, I could just leave it with the pins in and call this good enough, but let's put a couple stitches in and then it will be completely done. Okay, so the craft is done. That last time-lapse clip that you watched, you probably noticed that it was pretty quick, and that's because it ended up being one of those things where you kind of have to like get pliers or use your teeth on the needles. I'm not proud to say that, but because the tin foil was folded over so many times, it became almost impossible to pass a needle through it, so it was kind of like it was a bit of a struggle, and definitely not something I wanted to film, but I will now reveal to you the finished product. Dun, 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 ta-da. Here they are finished. This camera that I have I don't feel like does the colors of things justice at all, but it is a very nice brown color, very squirrel girl color. You can see the inside sort of unfinished, but I'm not too worried about that because when you put it on your head, I mean, you can't tell. I'm really happy with how the shape turned out. I'm really happy with how the fur texture turned out. I've never really worked with fur like this before. I love how spiky they are, and they match my tail perfectly because I made them both myself, so I'm very happy with how they turned out, and I hope you enjoyed watching this video of me crafting these squirrel ears, and I hope I'll have more videos in the future about this cosplay, and I hope I get it done soon. But yeah, only time will tell, so thank you for watching, and I will see you later.